Right. Okay, welcome. Oh, it's so brilliant. This has been such a long time coming, this workshop, I think. Just got the courage up to do it now. And Antoinette also has been absolutely fabulous. So I invited her very short notice, really, wasn't it, relatively? And she stepped up and said she'd love to do this with me. So I'm really pleased about that. So welcome. I'm Jan Baker. I'm a PTSTA and a UKCP registered psychotherapist. I have a private clinical and supervision practice in North Lincolnshire. I'm also chair of Member Services Committee on UCARTA. Completely alone, by the way, so if anybody wants to join Member Services, I'll put a quick plug in there. Until recently, I was the written exam coordinator for UCARTA. I am stepping down shortly. Rachel Curtis is going to be taking over, but I will be doing some of the written exam work if there's a conflict of interest there with Rachel. And I also sit on the exam committee, and I'm joint appeals coordinator with Helen Rowland for the UCARTA written psychotherapy exam. And I'm dyslexic. Over to you, Antoinette.
Hi, I'm Antoinette. I am based down in Devon and Exeter, and I work full-time as a researcher at the University of Exeter in psychology, looking at perinatal mental health and also chronic health in the medical school and an impact on patients. And I run a private kind of TA practice in Exeter. Will be going for CTA in the next year or so. That's dependent on, I've just submitted my PhD this morning. So I think I have enough on my plate to kind of go with. I'm also chair of the UCARTA research committee. So if anybody's interested in research, please get in contact with me or any of our members. Or would like to sit on the committee as well. I'll do another plug as well as Jan. I also sit on the IATA TDRC, which is the Theory Development and Research Committee, just to get a hold of what research is going on within Europe for TA and bring that back to the UK. And I'm also dyslexic.
Well, can we just have the first PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Antoinette, just to give a bit of an introduction. Oh, thank you. Did you all receive the statement of purpose, the proposal, the research proposal? Yeah, that's brilliant. Is anybody not? Could you indicate if you didn't receive it in the chat room, and I will get it out to you. It might be a bit late after the event, but if you could, Paul, you didn't get it? No? Okay, if you could just pop your name in the chat room if you didn't get it, and we're going to be looking at that afterwards. I also sent out the previous article that I'd written, the inquiry into the experience of the dyslexic transactional analysis psychotherapist. So I will send you a copy of that as well if you'd like it afterwards. So just to go through the statement of purpose, today we're going to be focusing on training and the exam process. And this is going to be a piece of live research, so it's recorded. Antoinette will just go through the contract with you in a little while, just to ensure that everybody's happy with that. We're going to be gathering information to contribute to a second article, looking at how we can support trainees and qualified practitioners to incorporate their skills and creative possibilities into TA training and into their work. So for those of you that didn't get the proposal, this research is going to focus on both trainee and qualified TA therapists who have a dyslexic diagnosis or identify with having dyslexic traits. And I'll talk a bit more about that as we go along, because I think that's important. I'm not just focusing on people that have an official diagnosis. I think that's important. and we're looking at lived experience here. You know, I think there's going to be a lot of sharing, I hope, of stories, and also, of course, I will unavoidably bring to the research my own personal experiences, and I'm sure Antoinette will too. So there'll be a number of questions. We're going to be, that was also on the proposal that was sent out. So we're going to do some breakout work and with a number of questions, and also some polls to gather some statistics about all you participants here today. Okay, so obviously in true TA style, we need to agree a contract. So Antoinette's going to go through that with you before we start.
Just unmute myself. So
Thanks.
I guess kind of just an agreement between all of us when we're going to be doing breakout rooms, and we'll be feeding back to the main group. So when somebody's feeding back, just make sure you're muted, just to kind of respect the person who's speaking. Obviously, the session is recorded. If you have any issues, please do email either me or Jan afterwards, and our emails will be at the end of the slides. All the polls are confidential, so they're just basically numeric. No names are attached to it, so we don't know who said what. Just to be for you to be assured. And obviously all the information that Jan gets from today will be used in her second article, but there'll be no names mentioned, and all data will be confidential. But if you have any concerns, obviously please just email Jan, and she'll be happy to kind of respond. Use the chat box throughout the kind of session, and I'll be kind of noting down all the questions, and we'll kind of at the different points of the kind of session, we'll address them as best we can. Also, when you're feeding back, when somebody's feeding back, just to kind of hold on to your comments or questions until they've finished, just to kind of respect them again. And any problems, please just contact us afterwards. If anybody has any issues, let us know. Otherwise, we're not going to take all thumbs up throughout the whole thing. It'll be a bit too many thumbs up, but hopefully that's okay with everybody.
Can I just add to that as well, that I've said the information is going to go to an article. I'm not quite sure what format that's going to take. The first one was in the TAJ, but I'm hoping that this will also be able to, I'll be able to use this information in the form of proposals to EARTA, UCARTA, and all the exam processes. So whether that will be more effective to put it into an article, I think I need to be looking at a much more accessible way of recording this. So it may not be another article that I submit for the TAJ, but I want to make it as accessible as possible to everybody, and also incorporate proposals to the relevant people, so that we're actually going to be making a difference here rather than just talking about it. So just to add that, so I'm not quite sure where it's going yet, but you will not be hearing the last of this, hopefully. Okay. Yeah, we're going to do some introductions. Yeah. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is, if you don't mind, I'd like to just go around. How many people are we? We've got 24 people. I'd like you to say one word that comes to mind when you think about dyslexia. Just come up with a word, the first word that comes into your mind when you think about dyslexia.
So needs put challenge.
Challenge, yeah, thank you.
Fusion.
Yeah. Stunned, wow.
Stunned, neurodiversity, wow. Creative, gift, neurodivergent, organization, unclear, creativity again, expectation, frustration,
Shame.
journey, structure, discrimination, and shame.
Wow.
Another one, judged.
Yeah.
Isolation and confusion. Again.
A lot of confusion there. Yeah. Can I add misunderstood as well? That's one that comes to my mind. Misunderstood. Disbelieved, Sarah. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you. Intuition. Yeah. Wow. I like that, spaghetti. My brain was this morning. Yeah. Yeah.
Overwhelmed.
Wow.
Brain fog.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, Hannah, what does that mean? That's okay, you can have 3 words.
Masking.
Masking, that's interesting. Wow. Okay, so do keep them coming when you think of them. Put them in the chat room. Yeah, adapting. Wow. Gosh. Stuckness. Yeah, everything does seem much more hard work, doesn't it? Dyslexic, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Just keep putting them in there as we go along. That would be brilliant. Thank you. We're going to record all these too, I guess.
Yeah, I'm writing as fast as I can.
Yeah. Absolutely. Huge variety of impact. Thank you very much. So we're just going to run a couple of poll questions now. And I've not done this before, so I hope it goes well. Antoinette's in charge of this bit. I don't know whether we're going to be able to see the answers. Ah, oh, right. This is wonderful. So, please select which best describes you. Either you've had a formal assessment and diagnosis, or you believe you have some dyslexic traits, or you don't consider yourself to have dyslexic traits. Wow. Could you read them out, Antoinette, please, once it's completed?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's good. Half of everybody's voted, so far it's leaning towards I've had a formal assessment. And majority of people having a negative impact, so about 69% having a negative impact so far. Wow,
that's huge, isn't it?
And that's increasing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, how does it end? How do we end this bit? I'm not sure.
Well, I'll wait till the 22 and then I'll end polling and then.
Oh, okay, right. Wow, this is brilliant. Can everybody see that, by the way? Can you all see that on the screen? Yeah.
No, Zara. Okay.
No. Okay.
If I stop sharing, you might be able to see it now.
Is that better?
No. Katya says no. Okay.
No.
So I'll probably just actually what I'll do now is here we go. You can see it.
Is that better? Can everyone see that now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
So the majority have had formal assessment, about half people, and then the majority have had a negative impact.
Yeah. That is quite a lot, isn't it? Negative impact.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And some dyslexic traits. I guess I didn't actually say, and that perhaps didn't word that question quite well enough, that the people that have had a formal assessment and diagnosis of dyslexia, and then I believe I have some dyslexic traits. Does that mean the people that haven't had a formal assessment? I'm wondering. Anyway, it's still quite a high percentage, isn't it, that I haven't had a formal assessment. That was something that was quite important to me, I think, when I wrote the first article, because assessments, as I'm sure you're aware, are expensive, not always accessible to adults. And I really don't think it's important. You know, I mean, I think if you say, it reminds me of when I was a nurse. My background was in nursing, and we talked about part of the work I did was in palliative care, and we did a lot of work on how we assessed pain with patients, and of course pain is relative, isn't it? You know, the way you describe your pain is not the same way as I describe my pain, and I think that's really important when we think about dyslexia. We had and I think it was Florence Nightingale that said it originally, but I don't know where it actually came from, but there was a saying, and pain is what the person says it is. So if you have dyslexic traits, why do you have to explain? Why do you have to have a formal assessment to prove it? Why can't you just say, I need help with this, or this is what I struggle with? So that's something that I think is really, really important.
I think, Jan, it's often the person themselves wants the diagnosis.
Yeah,
because they want to understand that what's going on with them, because they feel stupid. Yeah, well, I did.
Yeah, yeah. I too had a diagnosis. I think I was 59 when I was diagnosed, and it was such a relief. You know, so I'm not saying it's not if it's wanted, but I think you shouldn't have to have it to prove what you need. Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Gemma.
Sorry, I absolutely agree. You shouldn't need it, but working as part of a disability service in a university, a lot of policies and processes to secure funding to support students in the right way, not just for dyslexic students, but all neurodiverse students.
Yeah.
You know, we need them to prove that they have a diagnosis in order to provide them and secure the funding.
Absolutely.
What they need as far as additional support is concerned. So in my experience, often the students will say, you know, I think I'm dyslexic and I need help. Yeah. And then we have to send them away to get a diagnosis and go through a whole rigmarole of faffing in order to get what they need. It's exhausting.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Because if you think about it, and this is the example I think I put in the article, was if you are, you know, if you have difficulty hearing and you ask someone to speak up or to, you know, speak more clearly, you don't ask them why they're doing that. You know, you don't have to prove it that you have that need.
One of the things that I found when I got diagnosed was that I understood myself better, but surprisingly, I ended up with more diagnoses as a result. So, for example, I ended up with dyscalculia, and all sorts of things, which made so much sense of troubles that I have had throughout my life.
Yeah.
So I completely resonate with the idea of relief and clarity and support. It's enabled me to access more support and to understand that other people think differently to me, and so therefore I can ask for help. So that's been.
Yeah. I absolutely think it's fabulous, but I think the assessments are really difficult to access. I was lucky enough to be working in a college at the time, so I managed to get an assessment there, but otherwise I wouldn't have got any help. Yeah, so okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the background, and then we're going to go into some breakouts.
Do you want to do the second poll or?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, we're not done the second poll yet. Okay, so we're talking about positive impact. Where are we? There's no one's experienced a positive impact. Wow.
Hold on.
Or is it just that the polls not come up properly?
When I filled this out, I said I would say probably both negative and positive.
Yeah.
But that wasn't an option, and I think in order to embrace the positive, that was a learning journey for me. But I could see that there are positives, but I checked negative because that was the.
Oh right, yes, it's probably the way we worded the questions weren't open enough to be able to fill that in. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Paul. Yeah.
Go on.
Sorry.
No, go on, Gemma.
I was just going to say, I agree with Paul. It was a bit of an ambiguous question for me because it asked in different parts. So it said about sort of exams and written work, and then in clinical practice. Now, in clinical practice, absolutely. I think my dyslexia makes me much more creative, and thinking in pictures really helps to work with the clients that I work with.
Yeah.
As far as written assessments are concerned, absolutely, I struggle with spelling and grammar, and I struggle with how to get my thoughts down on the paper in some sense of an order. So I did kind of relate it more towards kind of training and exams. I'm in the middle of pursuing accreditation at the moment, so I'm kind of very focused on that bit. But clinical practice, when I'm actually sat with somebody and in the session, that's very different experience of my dyslexia than when I'm writing an essay. That's
amazing, isn't it? Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Oh, looks like some more people joined us. Leilani, I think. Okay. Any more questions?
Sorry, Jan, I am here. I had problems accessing, and now I can't. I can't get my video to work. So.
Oh, it's good to see you. There's something in the chat room, Leilani, about people are having problems getting the video. You have to do something else in settings or something. There's some instruction in the chat room, I think.
I think I can get the other video, my not very good video, to work. Anyway, sorry, don't let me disrupt you. I can hear you. I'm sorry I'm late.
That's great. Good to have you. Okay. Shall we move on? And before we go into breakout rooms, just want to give you a little bit more background, yeah? Okay. Can you all see that screen? Can you all see the screen share? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to start. This is a quote. This is the absolute last paragraph of my previous article, and I just found it really moving. And I want to just read that out to you. And this was somebody that I interviewed for the first article. I found, particularly in the TA arena, that if I asked for some support with something, people are generous. But it's just something about the mismatch between generosity of spirit of people in this arena and then the requirements of the organisation. And this is how it is, and it's quite rigid. That's the incongruence, I think. And really, I found that difficult. I could just see him looking at me as though to say, you know, you're coming up with some story, or you're trying to hook us into some sort of game. the dyslexia card. And yeah, so I suppose I felt really pissed off. Really, I really felt a sort of deep sense of injustice. Yeah. And that was just so moving. And when I wrote the article, I had a bit of a battle with the TAJ actually here, because I wanted to write people's quotes as they said them and not correct them grammatically. They didn't like that to start with, but they did allow me to do that in the end. So I had a few battles with editors there. Okay, have the next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, this is me. This is me, aged around 7, looking happy. I wasn't happy. I was very good at spelling. I was always sick in arithmetic lessons, always ill, got sent home, letters to parents. It's very odd that Janet always feels sick in arithmetic lessons. And I did genuinely feel sick, I remember it. Yeah. And these were my classmates, all wearing their Christmas hats. And this was my hat. So just to explain that, I'd misheard the instructions to take home the crepe paper to make my hat. The following day, the teacher said, all get out your hats and put them on. And she made me wear the crepe paper rolls on my head and stand at the front of the class. And everyone laughed. This is Janet's hat, she said. And I learned, and I feel emotional when I say it now, even now. And so I learned that to make people laugh at my mistakes was better than to make them angry. And a defense that I still use occasionally now. And I feel that shame and discomfort. And not a great strategy, but it is a creative one, I have to say. It's a good defense. And so today it's really about sharing your creative strategies, what helps, what doesn't, and your experiences. And I could feel myself welling up and feeling that shame again when I talk about that experience. And there were many more experiences like that. Okay. So are we ready to go into breakout rooms? Thank you, Joe. Yeah. Oh no, we're not ready to go out into breakout rooms. We're going to be looking at some more slides. Okay. So our philosophy in TA, I'm okay, you're okay. Everyone has the capacity to think. And I'd like to add that we don't all think in the same way. I said in a recent online, I can't remember what it was now, we met up, I was talking about somebody quite high up in the TA world who said to me, oh, how do we know that people aren't playing the dyslexia card? And I think, well, why would people have to feel they were playing a dyslexia card? Because they're struggling. And I was quite shocked by that. So I want to think about, we don't all think in the same way. Have the next slide, please, Antoinette. Thanks. So as a professional body, and I'm talking about UCARTA here, we monitor standards of competence and ethical practice for both trainees and qualified transactional analysts, as well as offering a range of service for our members. And IATA promotes the values of dignity of human beings, self-determination, health, security and mutuality, which are obligatory for each TA practitioner independently of the field of application. And when we think about submitting exams or the training process in UCATA, and if you look in the UCATA exam handbook, it says if the candidate has dyslexia, then they have the option to submit a copy of their formal diagnosis to the exam coordinator. The exam coordinator will inform their examiners in writing, and I know because I've done this, examiners will be instructed not to mark the candidate down regarding spelling, grammar, or structure cohesion. And the errors mentioned reflect aspects of dyslexia itself and have no bearing on the candidate's competence as a psychotherapist. I can't think anybody would disagree with that. But it does stress about a formal diagnosis. And I really think that is something that we need to look into again, because I don't know why people would have to have a formal diagnosis to talk about their needs. And in IATA, I think both Antoinette and I had a look in the IATA handbook, and we couldn't find any referral at all to dyslexia.
No, the only mention in the IATA, if you do a search on their website and on the internet, is a small two-liner saying that they are looking into it.
Oh, right, okay.
But there's
Yes.
nothing in the actual handbook. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, focusing even just on the written exam, there is very little mentioned. So,
I was under the impression that this bit came from IATA.
It might have done, but
I
it's
think
not
it
in the
did.
IATA handbook.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was transferred. There's a lot of stuff transferred, isn't there, to UCATA handbook, but it's not actually in the IATA handbook, as far as I could see anyway.
I had a candidate who was extremely dyslexic.
Yeah.
Who I think it was the fourth submission by the time I picked her up. And she had a diagnosis and we did send it in. But the problem is, by the time you do the written exam,
yeah,
somebody else has had to tidy. Well, in her case, the only way that she would be understood by normal people who don't have dyslexia, I don't mean normal, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The only way her exam could be understood was for somebody like myself to really work with her on how to say it in a way that was acceptable. Yeah. And I think the answer is not to do a written exam, as I said in the trainers meeting. That's the thing. But since she passed, I'm not going to name names, but she's made quite a deal here and there about the absence of allowing for the fact that dyslexic people don't, then the written word isn't their natural medium. Absolutely. So things have begun to shift, and it may be, I think, because of that tweak has been put in, but it's not enough, because having a diagnosis, as I said, by that point, usually the supervisors had heavy input. It isn't any longer only the candidate's work. I don't, and unless the system changes, I can't see it. It's tricky. I don't know what else you can do but I think the system has to alter.
I think so. And I think, I hope we're going to come up with some really great ideas today about how that might happen, because as I said earlier, I was really good at spelling. I still am good at spelling. I never have a problem with spelling. So just to talk about that, I mean, everybody gets their exam proofread, don't they? That's never going to be an issue, but the structure, etc. Just have a look at the next slide, actually, Antoinette, if we could. Yeah, so these are a couple of things that I highlighted in the rating scales for the written exam. The first one is takes meta perspective and complexity into account. And the second one, which I thought was really, really important, was material well organized and coherent. Now, how do you account for that? You know, as you said, Enid, you know, is it a question of your supervisor rewriting it so it makes sense? When I was diagnosed, well, when it was first picked up that I was dyslexic, I was training at Metanoia. I was in my second year at Metanoia, and one of my tutors, I submitted an essay which was deferred, and that was absolutely devastating. I think even more so because of my past experiences of shame, etc. And my tutor, and this was, I'm going to mention him because he changed my life really as far as dyslexia, it was Dave Gowling, and he picked up, he said, I can see what you're trying to say, but you're not actually saying it. And that was the first time it was recognized, you know, that I had a struggle with explaining what I wanted to say. And then I went on, because I was working at a college, I went on to get a formal assessment. But it is about structuring for some people. There are so many different aspects, aren't there, of dyslexia and how it affects us. Okay, I think, is that the last slide, Antoinette? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to put you into breakout rooms. We're going to start to gather some information here about what we can do around all this. So the first questions are, what were your needs around dyslexia as a trainee? And if you're not dyslexic, what do you understand might be the needs of dyslexic trainees or colleagues? Okay, I'm going to capture all this, hopefully. So, oh, we've got a few more people joined us as well, so hopefully they'll be able to go into breakout rooms. Can we stop? Are you okay with those questions? Do you want to screenshot them? We're going to ask one person from each breakout group to feedback if we can. So if you could nominate somebody. Is there a way we can leave that up on the screen, Antoinette?
What I can do is I can send a message to all the groups with it in.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Well, hopefully it works.
Or you can just take a picture with your phone is the other option.
If you want to.
Oh, that's the other option.
Okay, all these fabulous Zoom tips. Brilliant.
So I'll stop sharing and then I'll open the breakout rooms now. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah.
Need more time.
You need more time, okay.
Is that not enough time? We'll bear that in mind next time. Yeah, we'll give you a bit more time. I'm never quite sure how to gauge it. So, oh, it's good to see you. I think we can see most people. Some people still not managed to join by video. So it's going to have to sort that out before the end of the workshop. Is everyone okay, by the way? We're just looking at the chat room and realise it's triggered some stuff, this, hasn't it, for people, you know? I really appreciate that, and please do let us know. Please let me know if there's anything we can support with that. We have
sorry, I was going to say, it's really nice to have the opportunity to talk about it and think about it. Because I think one of the biggest challenges I've found, even I was saying to my little group, I've had a diagnosis of dyslexia, but that was very late, probably, and it was like, well, I did it because of my own blooded mindedness and curiosity more than anything else. It wasn't something I'd felt had been a barrier, but now that I understand more of my process, I can see actually maybe it was something that was really part of my process. That the actual, yeah. Interesting.
Thank you. Yeah.
And it's nice to be able to talk about it and see, actually, and have a bit of validation and understanding of, oh, that's what it really is.
Yes, and I feel that, you know, I suppose when I've been preparing this for such a long time, I guess, all told, since the last article, etc., and I guess I'm maybe thinking about how sensitive I have been, or lack of sensitivity, I suppose, to how triggering this might be for people. And I really do appreciate you all staying with it, but you know, please do let me know if there's anything I can do to support that. I really appreciate you all participating. Okay, can we have somebody to, oh, thanks, Joe. Yes, I've just seen what Joe's put in the chat room. Yeah, that's a fabulous Facebook group that Joe's set up, which is really, really brilliant. Please do think about joining that. Yeah. Can we have somebody to feed back from each breakout room? I don't know how many there were. Were there, Antoinette? Was it?
There were 5.
5. So could we have some feedback from each room on those questions, those first lot of questions that we had?
I'm happy to feedback and get the
Oh,
ball
Michael.
rolling.
Thank you, Paul.
That's okay. So we as a room are very much focused around that first question, I think, which was the most relevant to us. And there was a list of things that came out here, which I'll just go through. A list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. So the first one was organization, clearness and clarity from the course leads. And I think that also played into the second one, which was for course leads to have an awareness of the effect of things being sort of sprung upon you as a dyslexic student, not necessarily having the time to process what's being delivered, and how that can be quite unpleasant and stimulate anxiety. Generally, after those two things were raised, there was a conversation around the importance of there being an awareness, and actually, I say just, but actually simple understanding of neurodiversity. And practical suggestion of something that is remarkably absent is a directory of resources. There are, you know, I'm confident in this group, you know, everyone has found their way to a greater or lesser extent, and people have come across great resources, but there's not really a particularly good hub for that. And perhaps there should be for a training institution to have you know, here are some resources. For me, my personal input was simply permission to be dyslexic. And it was, I think, one of the things, Jan, as you started sharing about with the story with the hats, I felt myself there was almost a release of, yes, it is allowed, which also plays against the thing about you almost have to have this formal diagnosis, whereas I think my perspective was that everybody else is allowed to just be them, without a little certificate to say this is why I am the way I am. Yeah. But for a dyslexic, you need, you know, so there's something around that simple permission giving and understanding that of what that may mean. And we really concluded with a conversation around the balance between disempowerment and empowerment in terms of how you work with dyslexics in an educational environment. Are you akin to that person who just sort of grabs the wheelchair and starts pushing it without asking the person in a wheelchair, would you like me to push you, or, you know, how can I help? And actually moving towards an empowering dialogue around what would be helpful, and putting a dyslexic student or practitioner in the driving seat and giving them agency.
Yeah. Wow, thank you very much. My gosh, you did work hard, didn't you? Thank you. Thanks to everybody in that group. What's the second group? Nia, yeah.
I've been nominated to try to summarize what we were all saying, even though I dropped out. First, I start with my experience, because that's easier for my head to go through, and then I bring experience from others, what I heard. I'm really difficult with directions, so when I need to drive to a new place, it creates great anxiety. But I think during my training, I wasn't really aware how much I'm dyslexic. I became aware after or during the CTA written exam. And I always ask for help. And because I ask for help, I've been perceived as I want to be rescued, which I come across a lot, that I'm a person who is playing the victim, or wanting to be rescued, rather than I seriously just don't know. I don't know where is my left hand and where is my right hand. Yeah. And if people saying left and right, I just tell them, please point to the direction. That's so much easier, because I don't really know. My brain needs to recalculate something there. So that's one of those things. Going through documents, long documents like IATA handbook or UCATA handbook, that's somewhat difficult. I just tried to recently find the fee for the PTSTA exam. I couldn't find the fee, so I just emailed rather the coordinator and I said, I'm sorry, I read the book 5 times. I cannot find the fee. Please, can you send it to me? I've jiggled all around the website and everywhere. I really couldn't find it. So there are something about structuring information to put them to the same place. When someone wants to go to certain exam, I need that and that and that and that, or have a chart. Charts are really helping to organize the brain. Having a flow chart, you need to do that and that and that. The information for that is here, and then is here, and then is here. So that, I think that would have really helped me preparing to CTA. Now I'm up to speed with the PTSD exam as well. So, but these things really help. And I found myself asking peers and asking supervisor for this information, because I couldn't go through the documents, and some of the peers were really helpful, and I felt like, oh, that's great. Someone mentioned in the group about writing the CTA exam and organizing the CTA exam, organizing the thoughts and structuring the thoughts, expressing the thoughts sort of in a nice, fluid way. That's a challenge. And I remember it was a challenge for myself as well. While I was writing, I was not too worried about the spelling mistakes. I always make them, but I knew someone will read it and spell check it. I just don't have eyes for that. And if I make a mistake, I would not see that anyway. My head just overwrites it. And that will be corrected. So there were, I hope I'm not leaving anything out. If I'm leaving anything out, I really would like someone to chip in quickly from the group and raise hand. But there are multiple things, and how we were thinking about how it could be helped is probably for some who doesn't really know they are dyslexic, someone being in each institute with an understanding what it is, and pick it up, or expect some people to be dyslexic, and understand how many dyslexia has 70 different areas where it can be diagnosed. We probably, top of our head, we know a couple of them, from the dyscalculia, spelling mistakes, whatever. But lots of people are dyslexic in lots of different ways. To sort of have a little bit more training around it, have a little bit of more general understanding in the TA community about that. I would find that very important. Yeah. So therefore the support or direction of support could be determined in several ways.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Thanks, Nia.
I hope I didn't leave anything out.
The rest of your group, and did you leave anything out? Sounds very comprehensive to me.
Thank you.
How did you do?
I think Lee was in a different group, so I will just leave now.
How did you manage that in that short amount of time? There's such a lot of information there. I was just thinking what you were saying about the flow charts. It was really funny. I was talking to Helen Rowland about this when we were on the exam committee together, and we were thinking about, I think Helen had produced quite a good flow chart on the exam process, and I was saying, oh, I find them really useful. Flow charts are really helpful. And so she said, oh, or maybe you could come up with one for something else. I said, well, I couldn't write one. That's where I get stuck, you know. So I can follow them, but I I'm sure that the dyslexia.
I love writing flowcharts because they are logical. I love them. Really love writing them. I used to work in Visio, and it just captures all my thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them.
I tried to use a mind map when I was writing my CTA, and it was impossible. There was so much information, you know, and yet I find them really useful to read. So it just shows the differences between us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The different aspects that we struggle with. Yeah.
Yes.
And they're getting lost as well. And I shamefully remember getting lost in Metanoia, and I'd been there in the actual building. I'd been there for over a year, and it's a bit like a rabbit warren upstairs. There's different rooms, and I went to the loo during a training session in one of the little rooms upstairs, and I went to the loo and I couldn't find my way back again.
Yeah, I have lots of lost stories.
That's shame, isn't it? How ridiculous is this? You know, I've been here a year and I'm still getting lost.
Yeah,
turning left instead of right.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't have memory of places, just don't have that visual memory of remembering anything.
No,
I don't have that, so I need to go somewhere lots of times to somehow pick those memories up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we move on to the next group? This is amazing stuff that you're coming up with.
I can go.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Can you hear me? Yeah, just if any, I've got, ironically, I've got terrible memories. I've tried to scribble down as much as possible, but if anyone from my group if I miss anything, if anyone else the group wants to join in, just pitch in. But we discussed a few experiences really that we'd had, and hadn't really got around to talk about solutions. But some of the things that we talked about was sort of the exam process and sort of the training process, the exam process, and how I think similar to the other group, how you have to trawl through so much stuff and get information, and actually trying to put that together in my spaghetti head is quite difficult, and actually, you know, trying to access different ways of accessing that information would be better. So someone talked about some sort of what I would call discrimination around assignment writing, and how I think what they were saying, and please correct me, was that actually a lack of understanding of dyslexia in the situation meant that they didn't really their assignment was marked down for different reasons relating to dyslexia, and I talked about how I come from an educational background. I was a lecturer, and I used to help scrutinise and organise exam processes for the industry I worked in, and how my experience of going from a place that was able to present a very level playing field for all sorts of people, and how well organised that was, into the TA world. And so I saw a real contrast between the level playing field in one industry to the TA world being just a different experience for me. I can't talk about anyone else, but for me, and how overwhelming that was for me. And yeah, so I think there was generally some feelings of anger coming up in the group around some of the stories that people were sharing about their experiences, and kind of sometimes how I think someone spoke about earlier how my experience of being told that I'm getting into games and using dyslexia to bash myself around the head, when really what I'm doing is asking for help, has come up for me. Yeah, so there were some different experiences shared in the group. I don't know if I missed anything. Did I miss anything from my group?
I would just, sorry, it's Karen here. Sorry you can't see me. I can't get the camera working.
Hi, Karen.
I think I was quite shocked. I don't have dyslexia, but I was quite shocked to learn just the depth and the level. It felt like the lack of understanding in the TA world and the sort of, you know, the examination world. So the idea that like a supervisor could be sort of almost like pathologizing dyslexia and the implication that somehow somebody was as they're getting into a game, and rather than actually just taking it as a this is just how it is and this is what we have to deal with, it was making it into something else. And I was just quite shocked and appalled by that, because I thought how discounting that experience must be.
I think we're very good at that as psychotherapists, aren't we? You know, oh, it's a process, or it's script, or it's something. Well, it may well be, but it's still there. It doesn't really matter, does it, what you call it? You know, it's a need. It's a need. Thank you. I'm just aware of the time. Is it one more group? Have we got one more group to feedback, or is it two?
2 more, I think.
2 more, yeah. I'm just trying to think of the best way to do this, because I do want to move on and see what else we can do. I want to get some positives before we finish as well, from some positive ideas, etc. Would we be able to just have some very, very brief feedback, and we can, and if those 2 groups, if there's more than you can feed back in the time, if you could just put it in the chat room, because we are going to be able to you know, focus on that and pull out all the stuff from that, capture it afterwards. So just a very brief verbal feedback, and then put the rest of the information in the chat room if you could.
Yeah, I'm happy to try and summarize it.
Thanks, Sebastian.
We noticed there was a lot of driver behavior in the whole process. We talked a lot about the be perfect driver and be strong, and that might link into shame. So I think from a training establishment, it would be helpful to have a lot of awareness and support. And I think 2 of us talked about our training establishment being really open to it and discussion that. I've got to name check Leilani, otherwise she'll tell me off later, but Lincoln Centre are brilliant at that. The other thing was that there's having it in different places. I think about audio books. We're surprised at how little audio. There's so many long reading lists of stuff to do in TA, and yet if you had like an audio book, I think John does produce a podcast, which is fantastic, and that's really helpful. And things like the UCATA newsletter, I think, as a role, Denine Picciarelli, she has got that audios. That's really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Hi, can I just say that there is an app called Speechify where you can put any PDFs in and you can read it. It'll read it to you. So there are tools out there, and I mean it costs, but I personally use that to read through the hundreds of books that there are to read.
Yeah.
Can you say the name again, please?
It's Speechify. I can put it in the chat.
Put it in the chat room.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sophie. Yeah. I just wanted to say something there that just came up for me when Sebastian was talking, and that is, when we're talking about drivers, I wonder how many people are impacted and how their dyslexia traits are worse under stress. When we're under stress, or when we're on, really, I've just realized how much I'm hugely impacted. In fact, I almost lose my words, you know, I just can't speak almost. And all sorts of confusion kicks off when I'm particularly under stress. Yeah.
Can I also, I mean, I'm aware of running out of time. So from the last group, everything that's been said, we had covered as well. All of it, I just want to affirm. But the last thing was to also point out that our drivers can also lead us to procrastinate. Procrastination comes from a place of fear, and that is strongly linked with be perfect and hurry up and be strong. You know, all those things together can really cripple you, to lead you into a place of being crippled by procrastination through the whole shaming process of the work that we have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Could I just make a quick comment in response to
Emma,
Sophie's comment? I know that there are a lot of resources available in regards to kind of read and write software. I guess one question that I have is that our responsibility, or is that the Training Institute's responsibility to make an adjustment in order to, under the Disability Discrimination Act, any training establishment has a responsibility to make adjustments so that disabled students are not adversely affected by their disability, to level the playing field, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a really good question.
I think that's worth a deeper discussion about what training establishments are offering for disabled students.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I hope that's captured in the chat as well. Yeah. No, Antoinette's busily writing some stuff as well, so doing an amazing job. Thank you. There's no way I could do all this together.
At the university, we definitely have, it's the university's responsibility to support our students, and every student. I mean, I have, for my PhD, I had something called an ILP, which was an independent learning program. And I went through it, and essentially supervisors or people who are monitoring your work are supposed to kind of go through and make sure that everything is adhered to. It's not always, or in my case, it was kind of rarely, but it's there, and it is the organization's or training institute's responsibility. So it's something that maybe we can take back to you, Carter, and discuss at the RTE level.
Yes, I guess so. I think as well that things that were offered to me, I mean, I only briefly worked in this college where I managed to get my assessment, but the things that were offered are not necessarily, they're just standard offers. They're not necessarily things that would help me. So they offered me a new laptop. I don't need a laptop, I've got a laptop. They offered me Read and Write Gold, which doesn't work for me. It doesn't help me at all. So there are things that need to be considered on an individual basis. I think what helped me most, I think, was getting the extra printing vouchers so that I could print everything out, because I just can't do reading on screen. Imagine marking an exam, a 24,000 word exam. that would just be out of the question on screen for me. I'll have to print it out. Hi Paul. Yeah. Just sorry, can we just have one more comment, and then we need to go back to the breakout for the second question.
I just wanted to pick up on what you were talking about with all of these different options that were given to you, and I do think there needs to be a move away from this very prosaic understanding that people have about dyslexia. Oh, that means the words wobble around then, and I'd say, well, no, not for me. So I just wanted to underline that, and I think that's very, very important.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Enid, yeah.
Just put in one final request as a trainer, that it would be really helpful if people who are here said what had helped them learn, because it's almost like otherwise the trainer is lost. I mean, I work very experientially, that's how I train. So I hope that means people can often absorb it in that different way. But I don't know that unless I'm told that.
Well, that's the next question, Enid. Enid, that's the next question, I think.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so we're going to go with the breakout question. I think that will be really useful. Yeah. So I want to know what works and what doesn't work, what helped and what didn't help. So what did you find helpful in your training, and what's needed now to consider people who are managing dyslexia? That doesn't make sense, does it? What is needed now to consider?
And we want to make it more generic in case there are people who are not psychotherapists,
Ah, right. Yes. Yeah, that's what I mean by that. But certainly, what did you find helpful? Let's end on a positive if we can, and find out what's helpful. Don't think we're going to get to breakout question 3 now, but if you want to think about also in the breakout what you felt was an advantage or disadvantage, maybe, but we probably won't get to that. It's more important, I think, to think about what you're going to find helpful.
Yeah.
So we'll pop you into breakout rooms again and then come back and